Cat?
All right, so awesome. So unlike the other presenters, I really don't have any PowerPoint slideshow, so I guess you're stuck with looking at my face. Hopefully that works. So let's get started. So the title of this talk really should be from electrical engineering graduate, student to software tester to software developer, but I figured that title was a little bit too long, so I spare you guys the details by actually talking about it today. And to begin, I wanted to ask you guys a question. It'll be rhetorical given that I cannot see you guys, especially your hands, but how many of you are fearful of failing? And just think about that question. And I'm visualizing the hands right now, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people are saying, yes, I am afraid of failing. Okay, so now I'm gonna ask you another question. And now this time also rhetorical, how many of you guys want to be successful? I mean, the type of success where you look back 5, 10, 15 years from now and say, I've achieved my dream goals. Again, so I'm thinking everyone's raising their hand and saying, yes, I really want to be successful. But I think the irony in this is that these two questions are directly linked. And I say that because in order to be successful, you have to fail. Okay, I'm going to repeat that. So in order to be successful, you will fail. And now that sounds like a bold statement. You're probably wondering, what the heck am I talking about? But let me tell you my journey and my story, and maybe that will make a little bit more sense. So growing up, I come from a low income background, from a single parent, and my mother sacrificed everything for me, her whole life. She was the type of person that encouraged me continuously, whatever my goal was, whatever my dream, she inspires me to this day to do so. And then also my father, now he is a computer technician, and so anytime we had problems, he was the one to come over and fix things. And what I loved about my father is that when he would fix the computer, he told me, come over here, I want you to understand what I'm doing. So he introduced me to the functionalities and inner working of the hardware, things I never knew about, like circuits, motherboards, hard drives, CPUs. I was hooked. And so from there, I was like, I think I'm going to be an engineer. And I mean, I already experimented with taking things apart from a young age. I was the type of person that was very curious. So if I wanted to know how something would work, I would take it apart and try to piece it back together. Most of the times I was not successful, but I think the challenge in itself was exciting for me. So I went to high school actually for engineering. And then following that, I got accepted to NYU for electrical engineering. And that was a rigorous program. I remember in my undergrad having to take 2 computer science courses, which I was not good at all. It was MATLAB and C programming. And so because I wasn't good at it, I just lacked interest. And after graduating college, surprisingly enough, I got some offers from my current position, which is in IBM. And at IBM, the offers that were, given to me were either hardware or software. And I think the twist was I did not go with the hardware position. I actually went with the software role. And the reason being was because the hiring manager at the time, he believed in me. He sold me on the idea of, look, I had a similar background from you. I went to university, had a EE degree, and now I'm a software engineer now turned manager. And I think you will be successful on my team. And so because he had that confidence and belief in my capabilities, I gave it a try. And so he made a deal with me. He said, give me a year to convince you that software was great. And after that year, if you like it, you can stay in software. If not, you can move to hardware. So I said, I'll give it a try. And I started off as a software tester. And I think being a software tester is actually a good way to learn about the mainframe, especially someone who's novice or like a new hire like myself. And at the time, I was working on the operating system known as Linux and ZVM, or ZVM, as some people would say. And I was really hooked, and I love what I was learning. And I think what I liked the most was the virtualization part of what I was doing. Everything was new and exciting. And we were also working with front-end GUI, and having those capabilities really helped me to further understand what an L part was, what DASI is. And that was like a teaching aid in itself for me. I was really able to learn as a tester and break the functionality of the software. When I was told, okay, that's what you're supposed to do as a tester, break the functionality, find loopholes, I was like, well, I think I could do this. I mean, again, from a young age, always curious to know how things work. So I think I can be successful at it. And over time, I grew in my role, but I wanted more. I was hungry for more. And so I thought of, what about development? So I talked to my manager at the time, and he said, well, we have this idea where you will work with development for a bit, but you'll be in charge of the smaller fixes. Again, not having a computer science background, not knowing too much about development, I had my lead as well as my manager have enough belief and confidence in me to get the task done. So the fixes I provide, again, were for our REST API. And at the time, everything was very difficult for me to process and take in. And starting from scratch, it can be a little bit overbearing, so to speak, to jump in from electrical engineering to testing and now development. And to be honest, I failed. I failed several times. I failed again. I don't even know how many times I failed. I mean, miserably, to the point where there was assignments given to me and I didn't necessarily always understand. And it might take me a little bit longer compared to my counterparts to really grasp what I was doing. But then I got a handle on it. And so I went from being the software tester to the software developer giving fixes to now the software full-time developer. And that in itself was even more of a challenge because I did not learn Java and Python in school. I learned that all on the job. So for me, how I learn is by patterns. And what I mean by patterns is I look at a piece of code, especially like, say, for instance, Java, and I might not fully understand the code, but I try to find something like a template, so to speak, so I can break down and dissect the code and see how it works, and from there apply it within my own, written code. And it actually worked, where I was able to fully grasp what I was doing, to the point where I didn't need hand-holding anymore. Now I can code on my own in Java, or now I can code on my own in Python. And it was a long process. I mean, there's still times where I don't always get things right, or there's still times where I might have to research a little bit more. But what I appreciate is that in those failures, in those moments of struggles, was the success, was that gratification of, look how far I've gotten from pretty much not knowing anything about software development in itself to knowing so much. And that's because of a characteristic I would like to call grit. Now, grit, it's defined by Angela Lee Duckworth as persistent perseverance, right? So to have grit, or to persevere without let up, to endure for longer periods of time, people like that are considered to be successful. And the reason being is because they might not initially understand how things work, but they have a grasp as to what's expected. And they believe in themselves to the point where they keep pushing, they keep enduring until they get where they need to be. And that's exactly the trait that I embodied since I was a young person. And the reason why I'm able to speak right now and to talk about my story, as well as the many of the accomplishments I had in my life, was because I just didn't give up. I took those failures and those lessons learned as self-betterment. And it's like the greatest feeling to have. And the one thing I want to share with everyone, and I want them to understand from my personal story, is that failure in itself is powerful. And failing and success go hand in hand. And so I want to leave you guys with Chinese proverbs that I personally learned. And it's, failing is not falling down, but refusing to give up. So always remember that. Take every critique, take any embarrassing moment, take any correction as just self-betterment and improvement as to who you can be. And to be honest, changing career path, whether you want to do development, tests, whatever the case may be, it will not be easy. Again, you're going out your comfort zone, so you will fail. But use that failure as power. Better yourself, do better. And of course, share your knowledge with others. So that's all I wanted to say. Hopefully this resonates with a lot of people. And that's pretty much it. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And yes, I feel like we've had many technology failures tonight, and we still managed to persevere as well. So this has definitely been a learning experience. But thank you so much for that fantastic look at your career. Sam, I think we've got a couple of questions, haven't we?
Yeah, so following on from your conversation about failure there, Megan, I wanted to approach some of the other panelists and ask them, have they had, if they've had a major failure within their career or even a minor failure, but do you have a failure that's been most rewarding throughout all of your career?
A failure in myself or failure of, I guess when someone hit the scaffold button in a data center and powered it off, was quite a failure for me.
Wow, yeah.
How did you manage to overcome it?
Well, I wasn't actually in operations at the time. I was working on a project, and the chap I'd trained, all of a sudden, all our monitoring systems were going haywire, and I got a little tap on the shoulder, and this chap that was shift manager went, "Oh mate, couldn't do me a favour? Your lad Darren's having a bit of bother inside. Couldn't give him 5 minutes of your time to sort him out, could you?" And as I walked in, everything was just lighting up, and I said, "What's happened?" And he went, "I don't know. The phone's ringing, the consoles are dropping, there's jobs failed, no connection." And I went, and I literally just walked in on it, and I went, "What's going on?" And he went, "I don't know, mate. I don't know." So I said, "Look, I'll phone down and see what's happened." And at this point, we realised that was at the instant where we realised when you do a power on reset of the mainframe, your tape silo doesn't always come back, and it's the 50p LED bulbs that are going to get you. So we had to wait for a 50p LED bulb to arrive to get our tape silo back, and we needed the tape silo in order to bring part of the mainframe back. It was interesting.
That sounds like a challenge that I would never want to have to deal with.
Time went quick.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, yeah, Sam, I've got one failure. I'll fess up to it now. I worked on a product. It was called the ZOS Explorer, and it still exists. And one of the views, you can see all of the jobs on a mainframe, and you can hit a button called delete, or hit the delete button, and it will delete that job. It will cancel and purge that job. I made a mistake when I was a developer on that, where instead of canceling just that job, it canceled every single job. That went out in the field, and an operator from one of the very first customers to download that build went to delete a specific job, and it killed every single job that they had. Every single job. They were their TSO user ID was a high enough privilege. They killed every single job. They wiped the entire batch queue, all kicks, everything. They took the entire thing down.
Oh yeah.
Wow! So that was bad. That was bad. Yeah, that taught me that automated tests are good.
You're still
so
here.
It changed. Yeah. So.
See, that's the benefit. Like when you hear it from people like you guys, the experiences that you've gone through, those failures that you've had, but you're still here and you're still battling on, and you're in the positions that you are today. And as a newer person in the field of mainframe, it's actually a real big relief to know that all of you guys have gone through these processes, because it makes you realize that everyone's human as well.
Joe, I've done something similar. I went to lunch, and my colleague overnight, when he was checking the payroll back, the A7, you put 1X to go into the job, the second X posts its requirements. I went to lunch, and when I came back on the Wednesday, he decided about 3 o'clock in the morning that he'd checked through the payroll schedule. He put a second X, posted off part of the payroll schedule out of sequence, and it was very touch and go whether or not we'd actually get people paid on time. We had to call in everyone in the payroll team. There was sweat, there was tears, there was words. These guys worked 24/7 for about 2 days in order that everyone could get paid. And it was something as simple as you see. In CA7, you can post an X, to check a job as an operator, you put a second X, and it'll post the schedule. I've had that happen as well. Joe reminded me.
Well, it happens to all of us from the sounds of it, or it can happen to anyone.
I have a story to share as well, but I was never blamed. I was to our Austrian Airlines. It's something, it went bankrupt, I think, something like 10, 15 years ago. So ended up in Lauda Air or whatever. I destroyed on their system residence, I destroyed the VTOC, which is the basic thing for every operating system to find its files again. Okay, I was not shot and I kept my job. They just said, okay, we had a an exercise for backup and restore. We needed the restore part. So, but that was one of the things. I damaged more, but it would take hours. But I was never blamed for it, so no real kicker.
I'm glad to hear it.